Released in 1987, Dogs in Space presented punk's heyday in a chaotic glory. It, along with Sid and Nancy, introduced a generation to one of the most influential musical movements of the 20th century. Given that, it's hard to fathom the movie's obscurity in the United States today. Even the soundtrack is relatively unknown in the US, which is odd considering how popular INXS was here, and that lead singer Michael Hutchence figured prominently in both the movie and the music. The story follows the exploits of various tenants of a house in 1978 Melbourne, some of whom are the fictional band Dogs in Space. Their passions, aspirations, frustrations, sorrow, and realities are all strung together into a loose but cohesive narrative. Living in the house are the student Lucio, the Dogs' singer and keyboardist Sam and Tim, Sam's girlfriend Anna, the mysterious runaway girl, and numerous visitors who come and go at random. Along with various musical performances, the action includes trips to Ballarat, home of the only 24-hour convenience store in the Melbourne area at the time, counterfeiting pieces of Skylab which burned up over the skies of Oz that year, and endless examples of drug use and schemes to obtain more. Through it all, director Richard Lowenstein created a realistic homage to Australia's early punk scene, much of which he lived through. Not only is the movie filmed in the house he lived in, and where the actual events occurred, but the characters are based upon people he knew then, several of whom appear in cameos throughout the film. The authenticity extends even to the music, some of which is performed by the original bands from '78. One of the inspirations for the Dogs in Space band were primitive calculators who appear in the movie. To me, they exuded the original punk vibe. Their song, Pumping Ugly Muscle, epitomizes that just as much today as it did when I first heard it nearly 30 years ago. Like many songs of that era, there are numerous renditions of it, the screen and soundtrack versions being just two examples. While the song Shivers was originally written and performed by the Boys Next Door, who incidentally were fronted by a young Nick Cave, Marie Hoy does an admirable job of bringing the duality of the composition to life. Sadly, the music written specifically for the movie falls flat to my ears. Make no mistake, Hutchence brings a vitality to the songs he sings. It's just that they don't seem to fit. They're more like an 80s interpretation of punk than the real thing. Where the original music and he shines is in the ending credits song, Rooms for the Memory, which did get some US airplay in '87 and '88. My disappointment with the soundtrack is surprising, since composers Michael Hutchence and Ollie Olsen were both supposedly involved in the original movement and were acquainted with the people and events portrayed in the film. Maybe they felt compelled to update the sound to what was then modern airs, which is fine. I just find more enjoyment with the likes of Shivers and Pumping Ugly Muscle. The big controversy at the time of Dogs' release was the similarities between its ending and that of Sid and Nancy. Both involve vehicles dreamily occupied by lovers, both have heroin-involved deaths, and yet both were written and filmed almost concurrently by what I can make out. Looking back, it was really the fact that Sid and Nancy was released in the States before Dogs in Space, thus creating the illusion that one copied the other. Yet in reality, it was just the zeitgeist of portraying an idolized drug death and lovers inextricably linked by their addiction. In retrospect, Dogs in Space remains a fairly accurate representation of what it's like to live in the crazed atmosphere of too many musicians, roommates, and drugs in a concentrated space, and I say this from experience. There are aspects of the story and characters that eerily mirror what I lived through, just as I'm sure it does to others even today. The movie can be found in limited quantities on DVD for those of us in the US. Just follow the links in our episode description and help support Alterpast. But if you want it on Blu-ray, you'll be out of luck unless you live in Australia, or have a player that will play a disc formatted for that region. The soundtrack is an even rarer find, available only secondhand. Some of the music is easy to find, especially the pieces from better-known artists like Iggy Pop, Gang of Four, and Brian Eno. It's the songs from the Aussie bands that are non-existent newly pressed or in digital download. And that includes the Michael Hutchence pen tunes, even surprisingly Rooms for the Memory. I wish you luck if you set out to obtain them in any form for a reasonable price. To hear more of the music, visit our blog and listen to what's been embedded in the article. You can read the original post at alterpast.wordpress.com. And lastly, Subscribe to our channel to watch more of the past you never knew. Thanks for watching. This is Will Carlson, and I'll see you in the Alterpast.